Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute in Ardmore, Oklahoma. I'm in the midst of a series in response to Hal Lindsey, who has been criticizing the preterist view as replacement theology. And believe me, I'm going to have a lot to say about replacement theology in upcoming sessions. But you really have to understand how critical the dispensational doctrine concerning the church is to their view, okay? Ryrie, Walvoord, Pentecost, Lindsey, basically all leading dispensationalists say that the church was not foretold anywhere in the Old Testament. Jesus came to establish the kingdom, that's to be sure, but Jewish unbelief made it, quote, impossible, unquote, that's Thomas Ice's word, for God to establish the kingdom. Therefore, God withdrew the kingdom plan, established the church, which was a total mystery in the Old Testament, and not until God raptures the church out of the world does he begin once again to deal with Israel. Now, Thomas Ice is emphatic in the book Prophecy Watch that there are no prophecies concerning Israel to be being fulfilled, after Pentecost. Because, after all, God had suspended the kingdom offer. Now, I tell you, and I mean no disrespect whatsoever, but you really have to catch the power of what I'm about to share with you. In Acts chapter 2, which is clearly after the time in which the kingdom offer was ostensibly suspended, Peter stands up on the day of Pentecost, and he responds to the charge of the disciples being drunken. He says, "These men are not drunken as you suppose, seeing it's but the third hour of the day. But this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel." Now, first of all, here is Peter saying that the events of Pentecost were the fulfillment of Joel chapter 2. Now, Thomas Ice says no Old Testament prophecy made to Israel was supposed to be being fulfilled on Pentecost. So right there we have problem number one. But that's not really what I want to talk about. Notice that Peter then says concerning the Davidic promise to raise up Christ, to raise up the Messiah, to sit on David's throne. And he says, David is not ascended into the heavens, but he says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until your enemies are made your footstool. Now, catch this. Peter quotes Psalms 110. All right? Sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool. Now, here's what you need to know. Psalms 110 is God's favorite verse. It is quoted or cited or alluded or referred to over 30 or some 32 times in the New Testament. And here's what else is so powerful. Every dispensationalist I have ever read, okay, every one of them agrees that Psalms 110 was fulfilled in Jesus' ascension and the day of Pentecost, where Jesus sat at the right hand of the Father until his enemies would be made his footstool. Oh my goodness, wait a minute. Do you catch this? Okay. Psalms 110 was a Davidic promise made to David concerning the kingdom. Now remember, no Old Testament prophecy made to Israel was supposed to be being fulfilled on the day of Pentecost and following. But here is Peter saying that Psalms 110 was being fulfilled on Pentecost. What happened to the view that the Old Testament never predicted the establishment of the church? Pentecost is the establishment of the church, and Peter says what's happening here was foretold in Psalms 110. Do you see the problem? I mean, this is incredible. Now, what this means, since Christ's ascension to the right hand, there to sit until his enemies would be made his footstool, since that was being fulfilled by the admission of all dispensationalists that I've ever read, that means that God's prophetic time schedule, God's prophetic calendar, had not been postponed. It had not been delayed. It had not been withdrawn. I mean, if the events of Pentecost were the fulfillment of Psalms 110, which was a promise to David, then nothing had been postponed. And furthermore, to reiterate, it means that the establishment of the church, which was taking place on Pentecost, was foretold in Psalms 110, which completely knocks the entire foundation out from under the dispensational world that says the church has nothing to do with the promises of Israel found in the Old Testament. You see the problem? You know, over the last few days I've gotten some emails from some of you who have expressed the fact that you have now abandoned the dispensational view as a result of my sharing with you and reading the literature. We do so appreciate that. We appreciate your open hearts, your open minds, and your desire for the truth. And you know what? We've got a whole lot more. Let me urge you to get a copy of my book, Israel 1948, Countdown to Nowhere. This likewise deals with the issue of Israel, her promises, and the church. Are these separate and disparate promises, or are they, in fact, the same promises? Well, you know what? Psalms 110 and Pentecost prove them to be the same promises. Thanks for joining me. Get a copy of the book. Okay, go to my website, www.eschatology.org. Bible Prophecy is currently being in a major renovation, thanks to my great friend Joseph Vincent. It's not quite up and running yet, so you can't go there, but in the very near future you will be able to. So go to Bible Prophecy when it's ready, or eschatology.org. Order a copy of Israel 1948, Countdown to Nowhere. Again, thanks so much for joining me for this morning's musings. We'll see you on the flip side.